Welcome to Rise and Reinvent, the podcast where we explore the transformative journeys of professionals who've dared to redefine success on their own terms. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Jeff Gordon, an Emmy Award winning director and producer and creative force in the entertainment industry. From his early love of drawing, inspired by the Jungle Book, to facing rejection, rediscovering purpose, and rising through the ranks at Warner Brothers and Disney. Jeff's story is a powerful example of what's possible when passion meets perseverance. In this episode, Jeff opens up about the unexpected turns that shaped his career, the role of faith and family in staying grounded, and the lessons he's learned through both failure and triumph. Whether you're an artist, a dreamer, or someone seeking a second act, this conversation will remind you that reinvention often begins with simply taking the first step. So grab your headphones and get ready because Jeff's journey is one that you won't want to miss. Let's go. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Jeff Gordon to the Rise and Reinvent podcast. Jeff is an Emmy Award winning animation director, a storyboard artist, associate producer, and a leader in the entertainment industry. He's someone that truly has an inspiring story to share. Jeff, welcome to Rise and Reinvent.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Excited about our conversation today. And so the audience and I get to know you better. I'd love for you to tell us who you are, right? Not just your title or your career, but who you are as a person behind the career.
Well, I'll give you a very brief history of my life. My father was in the Marines for 20 years, so we traveled a lot when I was really young. Um, I got to experience a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, and I think that was one of the things that helped me to be able to adapt when I eventually relocated to California. Um, I've always been interested in drawing. The very first movie I ever saw was The Jungle Book, and when I saw that movie, I knew then that that was something that I wanted to do, or at least that it was something that I just absolutely loved and was fascinated with. And I just thought, and I didn't understand. I'm like, how in the world did they do that? How did they draw those amazing characters? And I could really relate to the character Mowgli, who was about my age, it felt like, right? And he was kind of this gangly little skinny kid, just kind of the way he was bumbling through the forest. That just, I don't know, felt very relatable to me because I was living in North Carolina at the time, and I would often go into the woods with my brothers and sisters, and we would pick blueberries. And, I honestly felt like Mowgli when I was a little kid. So when I saw that movie, I could completely relate, and I absolutely loved it. And then we ended up in California when I was in third grade, and then we moved to Wisconsin when I was in fourth grade. And from there, I stayed in Wisconsin in a small town called Watertown, and grew up there and had a wonderful life and childhood, and took all my art classes that I could, and eventually got a degree at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater in art.
Okay. So what made you pursue art as your degree?
Well, that's an interesting story too, because like as I said, it was always something that I wanted to do, but and I did after high school. I worked for a year and a half. Then I went to a tech school for commercial art for another year. And then I took a semester for pre-college classes because I felt like I needed to get a 4-year degree. And my goal at that time was to get out of art because I really didn't believe that I would be able to make a living, drawing and doing what I really love to do. So it just didn't seem like like an economically viable solution to being a young adult and having to make some hard decisions and make a living. So I just decided that I was going to change my career path. I went to, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Whitewater, and I started taking general studies. I was an undeclared major at first, but then what happened was a friend of mine that was in the art department called me, and she said, "Oh, Jeff, you got to come up to the art department. It's so amazing. You'd love it." And so I did visit her, and I went up as soon as I walked into that art building and I smelled the oil paint, and I felt like, okay, I don't care if I make a living or not. I'm going to get my degree in art, and I really have to do this. I just loved it so much.
That's wonderful. You know, often in careers, a lot of people chase the money, right? It's
Yeah.
where can I go? What can I do to make more money? And there's always been this saying of, and I don't know who said it, but find what you love and the money will come.
Yes.
And it sounds like you certainly, followed your passion in art and creativity and animation and things like that. So that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and it is kind of, looking back and thinking about, my parents did not have a lot of money, but my mom was always very supportive of my art career and, my interest in art. And we didn't have a lot of money, but she would always buy me a sketchbook if I needed a sketchbook. So, having that support around you really makes a difference. And so, and when I got married and decided to move to California, that whole story is kind of similar in that my wife was extremely supportive and very helpful, to to make this dream come true.
That is great because oftentimes, you go to college and they want you to become a doctor, a lawyer, one of those roles. And you say, well, I'm going to pursue art. And a lot of families are like, oh, no, you're not. You
Yeah, I mean,
know?
even my dad, even though he was a hardcore Marine, he just, I think he, well, I do remember one story that involved him, and that was we had, there was a representative from the art instruction schools came over to our house. He was a salesman. He was trying to sell, I don't know if you remember that correspondence course called Instruction Schools. But
No.
it was always in these magazines like Draw Skippy, Draw the Pirate, Draw Bambi, right? And just be this little ad, and you would draw the character and then send it in and possibly get a scholarship to their correspondence school. And so I was always interested in doing that, but we never had the money. And then one day I don't know how we got my name, but somehow this representative from the school came to our house. And this was about when I was 18. I think I was in my senior year of high school. It must have been, maybe I was 17. And uh, he pitched this whole art degree essentially on, correspondence course. And I was really afterwards, and we decided whether or not we should do it or whether I should do it. My dad was really supportive, and it kind of shocked me because it did cost some money, and I never felt before that like he was super excited about me becoming an artist. But that really helped me. I think like, okay, this will be fun, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed taking that course.
Thank you for sharing that story. It's a
Yeah,
very clear message to all the parents out there, including me, right?
yeah,
Sometimes you may not agree or have the same interests as your children, but support them in their when they show passion and interest and dedication towards something, support their curiosity.
absolutely.
All right. So my next question is, what is one personal achievement that you're most proud of?
You kind of touched on it a little bit right before this, and that is, as a parent, I feel like, I'm trying to raise my children the same way that my parents did, and encouraging them, no matter who they are, no matter what they enjoy doing, uh, to just to go at it, full force, with everything they have, but do it because they love it. If they don't, then, try the next thing and just move on. But and I've seen my kids really grow, and I haven't always been like that as a parent. But when it kind of clicked in for me to, when I thought about that, I'm like, that's really the best way to raise them in love, support whatever they do. And not that they would do anything, that would not be good for them, but I'm just saying their areas of interest are very diverse. I have four kids, and are each one of them, all four of them are pursuing their own dreams. And that I'd say that is my greatest achievement as a human being is to see them grow. They're all doing so well. It makes me very proud.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And they have a great example to follow in you.
Thank you.
Uh, so now that's all the good, positive things, right?
Yeah.
So this podcast is all about resilience and reinvention. And so tell me about a pivotal moment that really sparked reinvention. What changed?
Well, I gave you one example already, and that was when I was in college and I visited my friend, and I was going to go into science, but then
Yep.
when I went up to her, that was a pivotal moment. Um, Let me see. There's been a lot of moments. I told you about the Jungle Book. That was definitely a moment where things changed for me, even though I was only 5 years old. Um, I had a great art teacher in high school who he had this really calm, nice demeanor, and I always enjoyed the way he taught our class, and he taught me how to draw in perspective, which is something I had struggled with before that. And
Hmm.
so that was another pivotal moment. It was like a hurdle that I overcame that, drawing in perspective that I didn't understand and that he taught me. So that was another one. And then I would say deciding to go to college, even though I didn't have the money, I just went for it anyway. And I found, the least expensive school I could find that had a decent art program. And I worked super hard. I worked about 35 hours a week in addition to taking a full load. And uh, yeah, that was that decision when I was in college that, okay, I'm going to get this degree no matter what it takes. Uh, and that, I never looked back. So it was just that final, put a stamp on it. This is happening no matter what.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you had maybe not the financial support, but you had the emotional and support of your interest and your passion from your family, it sounds like, also during that time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I did.
Wonderful. Okay. That's important to mention.
Yeah.
Um, in what ways has failure been a teacher for you, and how did it shape your path?
Well, that's a great question because I don't believe anyone's successful without failure. I have failed so many times. Uh, but it's just you take those moments of failure and you decide, okay, that didn't work. What will work? And there's been many times, whether it's art related or just anything in life that I've done that I've failed at and decided, okay, what's the next, if that didn't work, what would work? And that's on a very small scale, if you're even just doing a drawing or a painting, you know, um, it's very much like who was that painter who uh, he'd paint and something would go wrong and he'd call it a happy accident. Bob, I forgot his name. Uh, but he would just take those problems that would happen on the canvas and turn it into something else. And
Hmm.
that and I didn't learn that from him, but I learned it on my own, kind of through trial and error, whether it was a single project, art related, a painting, a drawing, or if it was fixing something at home that was broken. It really, and just changing, taking that problem or accident and having it, use it to take another path.
Mhm.
Okay, to this, it might be to the same solution, but it's just a different route, or it might be a completely different path that takes you somewhere else. And often it's more exciting and it ends up better.
I love that. And it applies to not only drawing and art, it
Right.
applies to projects, it applies to life, it applies
Yeah.
to your work, right? You start something, you realize, hey, this is not going as planned, or the feedback you're getting is not positive, right?
Right.
Do you ball it up and toss it in the trash? No. You learn from it
Yeah.
and you pivot and you build something that can be even better. So failure is definitely an opportunity to learn and to be taught on, resilience for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So when I was first starting in the industry, first of all, it's before I started in animation. I wanted a job so bad, and the first job I had out of college, I met uh, this guy named Joe, and Joe moved to California and got a job at Warner Brothers and working on Tiny Toons. And so he knew that I was really into cartooning. We were good friends, and he called me up and he's like, Jeff, you have to come out here. There's jobs in animation. You'd love it. So I did, but by the time I came out, the animation industry had kind of cooled off. And so I spent 3 months pounding the pavement, taking my portfolio to every studio in town, many studios of which I've never heard of before, but they had an animation job, or I wanted to get a job. They didn't have any openings, unfortunately, but I just for 3 months I just kept at it, and I never did get a job that first time. That was in 1981. So I went back to Wisconsin, and I was married at this time, so my wife was supportive. She helped. I stayed with my aunt when I was in California. Went back home, got a job at the Business Journal in Milwaukee doing illustrations and graphic design, which was my
Mhm.
major in college. So uh, it was a great opportunity. I met some great people, got to do some illustrations. Also got to meet the editor who encouraged me to go, that when I did go back to LA, to check out the LA Business Journal and do political cartoons or editorial cartoons for them. So eventually I did, when I went back to California. So 4 years I spent back in Wisconsin, and I kept trying to get better. I had met a guy named Alfred Jimeno at Warner Brothers when I was out the first time. Joe introduced me to him, and Alfred kept encouraging me to send him stuff. So I did. I drew all the time, and I sent him a packet of drawings every couple months, and I would call him up and try and get his feedback. And he was very encouraging, and he would give me ideas and tips and tricks on how to improve my drawing. And I did that for 4 years. And then when the animation industry started to heat up again, I knew that I should probably try again. And most importantly, my wife encouraged me. She's like, Jeff, you have to go out there again because I know this is what you really want. So, so I did. And then when I did, I got a job immediately. Like in 1 month, I started at Warner Brothers.
Congratulations on that. And so you didn't give up. You kept pushing. You
Yep.
focused on your goal. You focused on building skills, advancing your skills and your craft
Yeah.
during that downtime. And so, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
My next question is similar, right?
Yeah.
So, when life is unpredictable, how do you stay centered and clear-headed?
Well, I am a Christian. I do uh, attend church weekly. And I really believe that helps keep me centered and keeps my focus on what's really important in life, uh, and how to treat other people, how to get along, how to love others, um, and uh, how to react to, what the world calls failure, right? Because that is what the world has a set of ideals on what is good and success, what it looks like, and what failure looks like. Well, if you're not overly concerned about the world, then that takes a lot of pressure off. Because, whether I'm successful by the world standards or not doesn't really, it's nice and I enjoy what I do. And I feel like I've been somewhat successful in the area that I've, been in for 20, 30 years now. Uh, but uh, but it's not going to define me. It doesn't give me my purpose in life. So I think keeping that perspective of having something else that, and it doesn't have to be Christianity, but I encourage you to do that if that's some, you know, uh, that's because that's who I am, and it's been good for me, and I believe it. But whatever it is, that takes your focus off of worldly success, I actually believe that you will be more successful in the world the more successful you are spiritually.
Thank you. That really touches the heart. Thank you for sharing. What would you say is one unexpected lesson that your career journey has taught you?
One unexpected lesson. Oh boy. Um, wow, that's a good question.
So, one of the things I may have heard you say is, an animation director, there's a path toward that, I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah.
And so you sort of took maybe the non-traditional path to get there.
Right.
So, are there any lessons from that you would, look back and say, oh, I didn't realize I had to do these things in order? Like, it sounds like that mentor was a really important part of your journey. And so,
Right.
any lessons like that were unexpected, but they really taught you and to become the person you are today?
Yeah, to be quite honest, I didn't expect to come to California and become an animation director at Disney.
Okay.
Honestly, I really came to this is the truth. I came to California with the expectation that I would become a board artist. I started as a revisionist that, like the top of my career, I would be a board artist because I really love storyboarding and I respect that aspect of this business so much. And I think that's the hardest job in the industry. So I feel like if I could make it as a storyboard artist in Los Angeles, that would be the pinnacle of my career. And as life would have it, and I think maybe that helped me in a lot of ways because my focus wasn't, I want to be an animation director and that's it, no matter what, because you can't just go out, I think, with that focus in mind. It really has to be a step-by-step process where my first step was I'm going to get, and I really this was my motivation was I'm going to get a job in animation and it's going to be the lowest rung. I don't care what it is. I'm going to start at the bottom and I don't care. And just to get in would be success to me. That would be like I made it, right? So that's the first job I was given. I was given an option of becoming a production assistant or a storyboard revisionist. So since I'm an artist and I said absolutely I'll do storyboard revisions. So that eventually led to doing, you know, well, here's something that's really unexpected. After I was a storyboard revisionist for 1 year, after that 1 year, we finished Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. The show was done. So, uh, but the animation industry was so hot that they didn't lay anybody off because DreamWorks had started and they were pulling people like crazy, and Warner Brothers didn't want to lose people. So I sat around for about 3 months doing nothing, except except uh, I was put on a development crew with Tom Ruger. Tom Ruger liked some of the things I was doing. He wanted a show about dogs. So he said, he wanted me to be on this crew. I did a whole bunch of different ideas. And one specific idea was I drew a vehicle that was in the shape of a dog, and I called it the Land Rover in quotes, right? Rover. So he when he saw that drawing, he said, "That's it. That's the show we're gonna do."
Oh my
Now
gosh.
that was unexpected. So I became associate producer and co-creator of Road Rovers, which we did make, and it lasted for 13 episodes. It wasn't a lot, but it was a really fun show, a great experience for me. I was just I went in the deep end on that one because, you know, it was also very exciting. I mean, I got to work on every aspect of animation. I went to the records. I helped with the storyboards. I worked on some of the backgrounds, designs. I did a lot of the props. I did a lot of most of the main characters I designed. And it was like, wow, and they asked me if that I could have been a producer on that show. But I said, that is way too much. I've only been in this industry for 1 year. I do not want that responsibility, but I do want to learn more about animation. So if I became a creative associate producer, then I could get my hands in everything and learn the whole business all at once. And that's exactly what happened. I think being humble in that way helped me a lot. And like I said before, I wasn't into the success like I had to be worldly successful. I really wanted to learn animation more than anything. And I was surrounded by people, incredible people, some of the best artists in the world, and especially for TV animation at that time, working. They had just finished on Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. So these were great artists, and I was so privileged just to be surrounded by them.
That is wonderful. So your company's in a downturn without a lot of projects to work on, but yet
Yeah.
you find one and it becomes a really good growth opportunity for you in your career.
Yeah. And admittedly, part of that is just luck, right? Because he was walking past my cubicle and saw some drawings I had posted on my cubicle, and something sparked in him and thought he'd be a good fit for this development crew. And I got lucky that way. He didn't really know me from anybody. He worked on a different floor. I was the brand new guy essentially, and he didn't know me at all, but he just saw something that he liked, and we got along really well, and we co-created that show.
You say luck, I say divine intervention.
Well, that's true. I believe that as well,
Yeah.
honestly, because it was so far beyond what I was expecting. And so, to get back to my earlier story, my intention was to come to California and work in the industry for about 7 years and then move back to Wisconsin. And I thought if I made it as a storyboard artist in Hollywood, that would be good. I could live with that, go back to Wisconsin, where, my wife was teaching at first before she eventually moved to California. So she had to finish up the school year. And so I really believed that it wouldn't last forever. And, knowing that the animation industry is very cyclical anyway, and I don't know if I could raise a family that way, where I could be working 6 months and be laid off for 6 months, which is the way it was back then.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I just hit the right timing, and I've been working almost nonstop. There's been a couple layoffs, but I've been working pretty solid for the last 30 years. So it's been an incredible blessing.
That is incredible. What advice would you give to professionals who are ready to take the next step or enter the next chapter of their career?
Um, I think we already touched on some of that, and that is to let the path, um, follow the path that kind of is shown to you, right? Be aware of the different options, and just be aware of where the industry is going, and take advantage of even the smallest opportunities. I mentioned earlier that I was drawing editorial cartoons for the LA Business Journal. Before that, I was drawing editorial cartoons in Wisconsin for a very small newspaper called the Walworth County Register, and and also the Economowoc Enterprise. So very small, very, very small town, small newspapers. But it was great experience. And before that, I drew editorial cartoons for the Royal Purple, which was our school newspaper at UW-Whitewater. And so taking advantage of everything that comes your way and using that thing as a stepping stone. And I don't even think you should view it as a stepping stone. I think you should view it as the job at that time that you're going to do your best at. And the stepping stones will come after that. So focus on what you're given or what you desire, even because you should be working on what you really want to do outside of your job, right? And then you'll find that doors open from that. And that definitely happened for me. All those times that I was drawing characters, Warner Brothers characters in those 4 years, right? One of the I don't know how related this is, but I want to tell you this story. When I was
Yeah.
at when I was at the Business Journal, we used to have these giant light boards where they would mock up all the papers, right? And so they would put the headlines in the articles, and there's 2 rows of giant light boards, and they were glass, right? Glass covered. And so
Mhm.
I would take these China markers and I would draw all these cartoons on them, and it would drive the publisher mad, and he's like, Jeff, you got to stop doing that. But because I just couldn't get it out of my head, it's like I wanted to learn and I just love doing it so much. I'm like, I got to practice.
Well, you never know where that could end up, right?
Right. Exactly.
So take a
So
chance,
just keep,
take a risk.
yeah, and staying focused on it. And like you said at the beginning, when you are find something that you're passionate about and the work will come. I believe that 100%.
Mhm.
If that's where your mind is all the time, and that's true of anything, good or bad. If your mind is in places it shouldn't be, then that's going to be a bad thing for you, and you're not going to have a lot of success with that, right? But if your mind is in a place of focus and this is what I really want to do. I just had this discussion with a group of students from the UW Whitewater. I was asked to speak with them. They were doing uh, like a travel class to LA. And so they were here and they invited me to come over and talk with them. And it was wonderful because I got to share exactly what I'm sharing now and that path, of what I took and the obstacles that I had to overcome to get there. Um, and so it was really a great experience. And I do truly believe that those obstacles, um, shouldn't be looked at as anything other than stepping stones to success.
Absolutely. Your story is just so inspiring, and so I'm appreciative that you're sharing it with us here today. I just have one last question,
Sure.
which is, as you think about the future, what does success look like for you, both personally and professionally?
Personally, success for me is just making sure that my family is taken care of, uh, and not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. That they're that they're all on the path that not necessarily happiness, because I don't fear problems like I used to in the past. I see them as ways to grow, path to growth. So uh, I really believe that you know just making sure that they're taken care of is really important to me. And professionally, quite honestly, and this was the begin. I'm the same way now as I was back then when I wanted to be a storyboard artist, and that was the height of my career. I thought, now I'm a director at Disney, and I've only got a few years left before I retire. Honestly, if I go out of this industry as an animation director at Disney, I couldn't ask for anything better for me, honestly. But who knows? Maybe they'll ask me to be an executive producer on something.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say no to that if they offer it.
Okay. Well, you'll have to keep me updated.
Yeah, I will.
If you believe it, you can achieve it.
If it happens, again, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy with, everything that's happened to me. It's way more than I expected already anyway. So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I would say you can probably add teacher to that as well for your future because we've learned so much from you today. And I just thank you for everything. And I definitely want to hear about the future and how you're doing and how you continue to benefit from that Emmy Award. And so, congratulations to you. I wish you continued success. And thanks for the podcast.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate all those great questions.